today we're working on a 2015 Acura RDX all-wheel drive with the 3.5 liter engine. And today the customer has requested that they wanted to replace the left front axle seal on this vehicle because when I inspected the vehicle earlier, I noticed that the left front had an active leak on it. So anyhow, before we start this job, you need to make sure that you have a 36 millimeter axle nut socket tool. Previously, in previous weeks, I had this taken apart, and the customer provided me with the wrong, incorrect part. The axle seal was too big. And later, during the job, when the customer supposedly had the correct axle seal, that one was also the wrong part. So the customer had to go back to the dealership to get me the correct part. After the third time, he got me the correct part. So as I said earlier, this vehicle was taken apart in previous weeks because I did not have the correct axle seal. So now I'm taking it apart again, and this is why everything comes out smoothly, because initially it didn't come out smoothly, so I was not able to show that. So now I remove the axle nut. You don't need to unstake it. In most cases it will just come off without damaging anything. You can unstake the axle nut if you want to, but you don't have to. Anyways, you need to remove the lower ball joint, the two nuts and one bolt. It's a 17 millimeter, and then push down on the control arm to get the steering knuckle out of the way. We are disconnecting the lower ball joint so we can get the axle out. So pull the steering knuckle out of the way and remove the axle out of the hub. You can use a bungee cord or a ratchet strap to hold back on the knuckle and tie it against the hoist or a floor jack. So in this particular scenario, I managed to use a pry bar to get the axle out. It came out fairly easy. So I went underneath the vehicle to pull the axle out, and you can see that I used a pry bar to get it out. Usually pry bars don't work very often for me to get axles out, but in this case it did. So make sure you have a drain bucket, a drain pan to catch the old fluid and to measure how much fluid came out, because you are going to be needing it to you're going to be needing to know how much fluid came out so you can top up the transmission afterwards. So you can see the axle seal. I'm just comparing the old and the new part. This one particularly was the incorrect part. I thought initially it was the correct part, but it was not. So I use an axle seal remover tool to remove the axle seal out of the transmission, and I found out that the openings were different in size. They were not the correct parts. And then later the customer went to get the correct axle seal, output shaft seal. So I was comparing the old and the new part earlier, but they was not the correct part. You can see that the opening is larger than the other one. Using a shop towel, clean the inside inner lip of the transmission casing where the fluid is to make sure that there's no dirt or debris inside there. So clean it out before you install the new axle seal. So earlier we had the wrong axle seal, so the customer went to get the correct seal. Is this one here, part number 91205 RT4003, directly from the Honda dealership. On this particular model, it's almost seems like that you can install this by hand without an axle seal tool. Axle seal installer tool. Pretty much almost in flush now, just by doing it by hand. You probably don't really need a seal installer tool for this, but you can use something to top it in, or use 1/4 inch extensions to top it in. So on this particular model, you can almost install this by hand, which is a little unusual, because usually in most cases you put it in by hand first, and then you can use 1/4 inch extensions and to top it around evenly. But this one seems to work in fairly easy, but it's firm and snug in there, so it should be all good. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, as long as it's flush all around the transmission case. As long as it's flush around the transmission case, you should be good, so that it prevents any fluid from coming out. So just make sure that when you are topping the seal in, only give it light taps. You don't need to hit it very hard. Just using a small hammer and a couple 1/4 inch extensions long, and a full extension here. Just need to adjust this a little bit at the bottom. And that should be good for the most part. We are ready to reinstall the axle now. So just make sure that the seal is installed flush all around the lip of the transmission casing. There's an inner lip inside here, It's very hard to see that on camera. You won't be able to see it, but should be lined up with the edge lip on the inside of the transmission case. Doesn't have to be perfect once again, but try your best to get it straight. Now for the splines that go inside the transmission, I usually like to use petroleum jelly, but I'm not sure if I have some at the moment. Or you can use transmission fluid on the splines, and that's okay. Petroleum jelly is safe to use. It will just dissolve with the fluid. It will not do any harm, so it's okay to use. You can use the Vaseline stuff or any petroleum-based product. So just take a tiny bit and to put it on the axle splines. Put a tiny bit on the axle spline so that it will go easier inside the transmission, so the axle it will not get stuck if you run into problems. And one other thing, when you're installing this, if you want to make it easier, you can position the C-clip at the bottom in the 6 o'clock position, so that way the gravity is pushing down on the C-clip, so it's pointing downwards, so it'll just make installation easier. The opening should be at the 6 o'clock position. You don't have to, but it just makes it easier to get it inside the transmission. So now we are ready to install the axle. So once the axle is lined up, usually I push it in like this, and then you should be able to get it in then. So usually once the axle is lined up, I give it a push like this, and it should be able to slide right in into the transmission. So once you're done, you can lubricate the outboard part of the splines of the axle with some wheel bearing grease and a little bit in the hub. I already had grease in there already previously, because I had it taken apart. So make sure to line up the axle and the lower ball joint, lower control arm, all at the same time. Otherwise you won't be able to get it in. You have to line everything up all at the same time to get it in. So once it's lined up, everything is the reverse of a removal. Just reinstall the 2 nuts and the 1 bolt. I just used a pry bar to push down against the lower control arm so that the studs for the ball joint will seat. We'll see inside. So just reinstall the 1 bolt, 2 nuts. The torque spec for these is 38 foot-pounds. So now make sure you install a new axle nut. The axle nut torque is 242 foot-pounds for this particular vehicle. It's all-wheel drive. I believe for front-wheel drive is going to be different. So install a drift chisel or something, or a screwdriver inside the vent of the rotor to hold it in place and torque the axle nut. You want to make sure that you are torquing the axle nut while the vehicle is up in the air and not on the ground. Otherwise, that's going to destroy the wheel bearing. You want to make sure that the axle nut is tightened to spec before you put the vehicle on the ground. Otherwise, if it's not torqued to spec and you put the vehicle on the ground, is going to damage the wheel bearing because it hasn't been preloaded properly. So you want to make sure that you torque this while the vehicle is still in the air before you put it on the ground. So after that, just make sure to stake the axle nut. You don't need to stake it too much, just enough to prevent the axle nut from backing off. So the job is all finished now. I'm just washing down the brake rotor. If you got any grease on it or anything, clean the brake rotor and the axle area and wipe everything down from top and bottom. And then you need to top up the transmission fluid afterwards. So roughly a liter and a half of transmission fluid came out. So make sure to not forget to top up the transmission fluid. So that's going to be it for this one. Reinstall the wheel. The torque spec is 94 foot-pounds. And then top up the transmission fluid. You'll need to go through the gears while the vehicle is running, and then after the transmission has warmed up a bit, place it in park and shut the vehicle off. You need to check the fluid when the vehicle is off on Honda and Acura vehicles. The vehicle, it must be off when you check the transmission fluid level for these particular vehicles. The customer provided me with their own fluid, aftermarket fluid, so I'm just using this stuff. So that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.